Dad Golf Podcast and on the platform currently known as X at the Dad Golf Pod, Facebook, the Dad Golf Podcast, and dadgolf.club. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Ian, how are you doing, buddy?
Living the dream, bud. Living the dream. It's just sound repetitive. Week 2 of the carnivore diet. So just meat and that's it. And chicken. And so it's painful when you have kids who eat pizza and chocolate and M&Ms and muffins and all that crap. And I got to make them food. And it's like, I can't eat any of this food. So that kind of sucks. But the one good thing is booked around at Cabot Farms, which is brand new, just opening. My buddy Ross, who I work with, part of his birthday is he got us around
Citrus
there.
Grove?
No, Cabot Farms, Cabot Citrus Farms. Yeah, that's the name of it. So it's the old Worldwoods, and so they rebranded, reopened it, and so I can't wait. That's gonna be a freaking blast. So back on the golf course for the first time in 6 months.
Well, starting out 2024, never done it before, out with a
There we go.
blast.
That's it.
Well, Ian, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm devastated. First of all, we had the biggest divorce ever in the golf world this week when Tiger and Nike broke up. So, honestly, that one rocked me more than him and Elin. Secondly, I wrote this entire episode while reintroducing my child to the Ferber method, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's just letting your kid cry until they fall asleep. So that's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And I just had to cancel my 3rd consecutive tee time in a row, but this time for the weather. So I'm down in the dumps, to say. But luckily we have a guest here to help move us forward. Let's welcome David Barino. And David, am I pronouncing your last name right? I should have asked before, but I'm not a professional.
Yeah, no, that's I've been called worse.
He is the owner and founder of Scratch Stich Golf, which was relaunched in 2022. Scratch Stich was invented by Barino back years ago to help all golfers at all skill levels improve their game. He has a deep passion for skill improvement and the game of golf, and truly resonates in his Scratch Stich product line. It is a multi-functional golf improvement tool. Alignment recording and putting aid. Alignment, swing recording, and putting are crucial to improving your game of golf, which we're going to talk a lot about tonight as well. It helps you, whatever the playing index you are. With over 20 years of experience in international business in several companies, David is now coaching also business owners and entrepreneurs to help with their personal business lives, and has dedicated hundreds of hours about neuroscience and flow states to help individuals become the best version of themselves. To succeed, every individual must be hyper-focused on every task, from washing dishes, having an intentional conversation with the spouse, or most importantly to this podcast, playing with your kids. Focus and attention are paramount. David, I hope I didn't butcher that too badly.
Not at all. That was pretty good, actually. I was like, man, that's great.
I'm trying. As Ian knows, I'm really bad at reading, so just trying to keep up with the whole thing of it.
I thought that was about as smooth of an intro as you've had in quite some time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I used to have a phobia of reading in front of the class when I was a kid. That's obviously done and dusted, but it's one of those things that reading out loud is always trips you up sometimes.
Well, as Hambino will attest, David, I have never been shy of the sound of my own voice, and any time that I can get somebody to listen to me for maybe more than 30 seconds, I'm going to take advantage of it. So I have never had that phobia in my past. But David, let me throw you into the deep end here. We're all kind of golfers, or we are all golfers. How do you feel about a good old turn dog, a little hot dog on the golf course?
I'm all for it. Yeah. I think Ian's probably going to forego the bun, but all of it together is delicious.
So we have a icebreaker we like to run with guests. There's no prep needed for this. It's just a really quick 5 quick hot dog related questions to get people into the flow of it. Something we like to call wiener on your mind. So David, are you ready? For
60
this
seconds.
rapid fire response.
60
We
seconds.
need to get it in 60 seconds.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so wiener on your mind. Ketchup or mustard?
Both.
Potato bun or pretzel bun?
Ooh, pretzel bun.
Red or white onions?
Oh, red.
Grilled or roller dog?
Grilled.
Chili or no?
Forgo the chili.
Sweet. Ian, how'd we do on time?
That was fantastic. 25 seconds. That's actually a record for us. So good for you.
Nice.
Off to a blazing start. You know what? I don't think we've
fast.
Oh yeah, buddy. I don't think we've ever had a roller dog yet. No one said roller dog. You almost need to come up with another question.
I think this topic does need to be reinvigorated on some things as we grow, right? Because we want to make sure, especially now that apparently these questions are fast enough for David Max Verstappen over here to just breeze through all of them. Like the F1 championships. Well, I know that's always a fun icebreaker, but I know I said it in the introduction, but Tiger and Nike breaking up. I mean, who saw that one coming?
Well, Phil Knight has to go pay Dan Lanning, his new high contract at Oregon, so he couldn't afford to keep Tiger. But yeah, it's crazy, man. It really is crazy.
Yeah, that would be like MJ breaking up with Nike. Obviously, that there's a little bit more into that contract, but I think all in all, there was rumors happening for over 6 months that he was gonna dump Nike, and it was like, oh no, that won't happen, but it eventually did, which is shocking to the sports world. But my feeling is that he's gonna have his own brand, and people will buy it.
Well, it was weird because if you all remember. And I was still really young in the game coming up. But Nike really didn't have a golf existence, and they went all in on Tiger. And even like some of the worst equipment, or at least not by me judging, but when you ever you read those like Golf Digest things of like the worst clubs ever made, it's always like that Sasquatch thing is in there. And it was always kind of like a marriage of sort of convenience, and they tried it with Rory, and it never really worked out. And they got out of the equipment game. What was it, like 3 or 4 years ago? They stopped making any golf equipment and were just apparel and shoes. So I mean, I think it's more like if Nike stopped making basketball shoes and Jordan was right, what would Jordan do in that situation? I think it was never really a golfer's brand. I don't know how you guys feel about that statement.
Oh, you take it.
Yeah, I mean it's they just try to like latch on to any talent that's going to go far, and they've always hung their hat on that. I think they failed a little bit on the equipment side just because they were trying to be so unique and different. In contrast, like Malbon is doing to what apparel is right now, and he's got a different style, and that we could talk about Jason Day's style too. But I think Nike's definitely they missed the mark on the golf equipment, but their apparel's always been seen on the golf course, and I think it'll continue to be seen on the golf course regardless if they have Tiger or not. And they're still going to sponsor, I think Finau is still on with them, and but it seems like they're segueing a little bit out of golf, but who knows? It just seems like there's a lot of more golfers, professionals going to other brands right now. So I think it's just kind of like a free agency in general, specifically with Liv starting their own thing. I think it's opened up the door to these smaller brands that will really make a difference in the future of golf. And I think it's good, regardless if you like baggy pants or not. That style is just old school. It started in snowboarding and skating, and it's just come full circle to golf. So with that in mind, I think eventually everything is going to recycle in the fashion world. And Nike has been immune to that because they've always been the forefront of their style and their designs. But eventually I think it's definitely gonna change the game of golf. with everything that's happening in the golf world today.
Yeah, you know what I think's interesting is like if you look around, like I think a good thing to consider is like go into a Dick's Sporting Goods, right, and go into the golf section. It's not dominated by Nike apparel, right? You have a lot of Travis Matthew, you have Nike, you have Adidas, you have Under Armour, there's Ralph Lauren, all these different. There's so many brands now in the golf industry, and I'm sure. Look, Nike's not dumb, right? They are a well-oiled machine. I am sure the money that they were paying Tiger probably didn't benefit in return on investment. Like it just comes down to that. Like I'm sure. People were like, younger kids, they didn't really watch Tiger. Let's be honest, right? So they're probably buying Under Armour, and then now you see, if you went from having half of the Dick's Sporting Goods golf apparel being Nike to maybe it's 1/8, and it's like, hey, let's just wash our hands of this, call it a day. Tiger will be just fine. Nike will be just fine. Like you guys said, you're still going to see Nike apparel on the golf course, but why would I pay you? I don't know what the annual number was, but let's just say it's $25 million a year, and I'm only making X on golf when I used to make 5X that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting where because like when I was in the business, and this was 12 years ago, I was in merchandising, and really what we had, like you always looked at stocking your shop, especially like you ran into this at Trooney, and you wanted a low-level shirt that people could come in and just buy the logo. You wanted a mid-level shirt that people like could associate with the brand, and then you wanted like high level. And low levels were usually like those private label stuff, like you get some Chinese company that like just puts your name on the back of it, or like a Cutter and Buck or Fairway and Green.
Cutter and Buck was as cheap as we ever went, but like even Greg Norman's for a while got pretty cheap. I don't know what it is now, but yeah.
Yeah. And then the next level you had like the FootJoy, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. And then really the high end you had like Polo. And that
Polo,
was
RLX, that brand. Yeah.
I mean, Peter Millar was just kind of starting.
It wasn't as big as it is now.
Right. Don Ross was kind of coming into that market too, but like now, I mean, you open up your Instagram feed and there's like 7,000 different like shirt companies, and we were actually talking to another one of our guests a couple weeks ago, and I forget who it was, but like I do love it because it allows it allows people to get outside of everybody wearing the exact same thing on a golf course, right? And so now guys are still wearing slacks and a polo, but like the styles are so different. You have all the way like you're talking about kind of like that skater vibe all the way to like high end, right? And then you have like the Colorado kind of feel to some stuff, and like just the straight up Caribbean feel to some stuff, and it's cool, like all over the place. And you get companies like Roebuck that honestly, like those patterns wouldn't have made it into a golf shop 15 years ago, and now you don't go to any golf course in the country without seeing some Roebuck stuff that's flying around. And I say all this stuff with my Nike hoodie. So.
Nike's Nike, right? Nike will always have a foothold, no matter what. I mean, I visited their campus in Oregon, and it's amazing. They've got more money than God, and they have the money to move the needle. And they're probably looking at the next best thing in golf, and it's just not Tiger, as you guys alluded to. He's past his prime, and I think there was just an inevitable separation there because of his age, and he has the money to put into his own brands, and I think that would free him up to make some decisions. And my hot take, and you guys may agree or not, but I think there's an opportunity for him to play in and live. The reason why is that I don't think he's got a lot of wins in him, but the team aspect, I think that's appealing to him. I mean, he started his own thing with Rory. That was a team aspect. I think that there's some room, and that I imagine that there's some conversations happening behind closed doors about him potentially going to live, because he can own a team, and then he could put his brand to that team and really just kill it as far as being able to contribute to a team and win as a team, not necessarily individually. and he's still going to play in the Masters. You know, he may not qualify for these other majors, but I think that is a viable option for Tiger in his golden years. And I think that is a possibility happening going forward.
When you were talking earlier and we were talking about like starting his own brand, the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about that is that's almost what you would need to do if you're going to go to live. I think they made the exception for Brooks, but almost everyone else had to kind of buy into the live apparel, right? So that was, you bring up a great point. I did want to add one other thing that I'm surprised Tucker didn't mention. It makes a lot of sense now the more I think about it. In all seriousness, the separation between Nike and Tiger came right around after we started bringing on the Forefathers apparel line. And I can only imagine they've lost so much money at Nike because of our podcast pumping out the Forefathers polos. Use our promo code. What is it? Dadpod TH now? Is that the new the promo? Yeah, that of course they had to shut up shop because they're like, Jesus, how can we compete with these Dad Golf podcast guys? So it all makes sense. Yeah, but I love your point on Live Golf though. That's a great point.
I do as well, and I think even anything outside of the PGA Tour, because him and Rory are doing his thing. Mm-hmm. It's been interesting watching Tiger go from phenom to the selfish player mode to the comeback to now where he was as reframing himself as like a custodian of the game and the custodian for the next generation. And what that what that looks like, right? And where that kind of melds into, because obviously he's got a vested interest with Charlie, right? And if he wanted him to be sheltered and not be out in the public eye and not be in golf, Tiger has enough money that Charlie doesn't actually have to play golf for a living to right. But I don't know Tiger as a human because I've never talked to them. Everything that I've ever seen from him, I don't think Tiger does anything without intention and without some really, really serious thought to. And putting his kid out, not putting his kid probably wants to do some of these things as well. But the man's very intentional is I guess what I'm saying. And I wouldn't be surprised to see something outside of whether it's live, whether it's this Rory thing, but outside of a traditional framework of golf where he can maintain himself in the public limelight as well.
I think John Rahm definitely opened up Pandora's box for more professionals to peek over to the other side. And I think you hit the nail on the head is Charlie could get a signing bonus at a young age. It's kind of like the English Premier League, if you follow European soccer or even Formula One for that matter, right? They're all teams. Yeah. So if you can imagine that, the money that Saudi Arabia puts into this brand is they have so much money that they can push around these big numbers to these players, and there's everybody's got a number, including Tiger. Right. The only thing really holding Tiger back right now that I see is his foundation, because that might, kind of taint his brand on the nonprofit side. But, he can also do that with the live tour. So, and I think that brand, if you love it or hate it, there's everybody with an opinion on it. I like to watch it because it's fast. There's always a shot to watch. And, the telecast is back, bam, bam, bam. There's shot. And you go to the PGA Tour and you're like, oh, great, another commercial. It's really lacking. And you can see it as they're trying to get new talent to, to commentate, who's what's his name that just had his debut at the Century. What's the golfer's name? He was announcing.
Smiley? Not Smiley, yeah. Right?
Well, Smiley's last year.
He's been there, yeah. I didn't watch any of the tournament so far today.
Yeah, he's from Texas. God, I'm blanking on his name. It'll come to me. But they have the new talent in the booth. That took over for Paul Azinger, and it's been a trip to watch. They're really trying to bolster the brand, but I think they're still kind of falling short.
Well, Live has to be Bam 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 because they have to get it all done before the rerun of One Tree Hill starts at 3. So,
yeah.
Well, anyway,
guys, was that CW?
Yeah, it's on the CW. That's why. Anyway, we do have to take an ad break. We're going to come back and talk about the main body of our episode, which is the 5 as well as